Welcome to episode 81 of The Leap Home. Starlight, Star Bright.
In this week's episode, Sam has to keep himself out of psychiatric care, save a young man from a heroin-induced death, and reconcile 3 generations of headstrong men with very different ideas on how life ought to be. With nefarious government types lurking in the background, can Sam pull everything together? Or will he seem just as crazy as everyone already thinks he is?
Dr. Jekyll and Major Hyde. Listen, try and find them, you slime buckets.
Evening, Ian. How are things?
I'm not too bad, you slime bucket.
No need for that.
No.
Another enjoyable episode, I thought.
Very much so. Had some Future Boy vibes going on.
Yes. Not without its issues.
Sam was very Sam.
Very much so. We've got a lot to unpack, I think.
We do.
What have you been up to?
Since I last saw you?
Yes.
Nothing.
Okay, I watched the new Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. Very good, if you like Beverly Hills Cop.
I went to the cinema. What did I see? The new Quiet Place film. That was good. But you need to like cats, and I've seen the first 2, I think, to really get the most out of it.
No, that terrible film with, was it Judi Dench?
James Gordon. And all that. No, actual cat. There's an actual cat.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, before we go too far down that particular rabbit hole, shall we do the socials?
Sure.
We are at Leap Home Podcast on Twitter/X, whatever you prefer to call it. Everyone prefers Twitter, don't they? And Facebook and so on. You can find our show notes at theleaphome.com. And if you want to hear next week's episode 1 week earlier than everybody else, head over to the Columbo Podcast Productions YouTube channel, where it will be ready for you.
Yeah, not everybody else.
Well, not the ones who are listening to this on YouTube, but that would be a bit meta to address those people directly.
The 5 people.
No, there's far more than that on YouTube.
There's a double it at least.
At least 10 times.
Anyway. Right, I think we just crack on.
I think the intro's more or less the same as what we saw at the end of last week's episode. Sam arrives in the body of a man looking up at a UFO in some kind of field.
Yes, his arms are outstretched, there's bright lights, and he asks out loud who they are, and is clearly not afraid.
No, he wants to know if they can hear him, and although we hear him say, "Oh boy," it's not what his lips are saying.
I think last week there was a triple "oh boy," but only a double this time.
And both times it was overdubbed, I think.
Okay.
But I couldn't work out what he was actually saying.
After the credits, we return to these woods and are told that it is the 21st of May, 1966.
Yes, before the world went badly wrong that summer.
Well, Sam appears to be wearing his pyjamas and is, I think, now quite distraught to witness the UFO disappear upwards at some great speed.
Yeah, we're given the impression this actually is a UFO, so we don't know if this is us seeing it from his perspective or if this is actually happening.
I was half expecting to hear the words "cut."
Well, not on this occasion.
No.
Sam is left alone in this field, but not for long.
No, a younger man appears and seems quite used to Sam's claims. We find out that it's Sam's grandson.
Tim.
Yes, and he tries to drag him home. Sam, however, has clearly fallen for what he has witnessed and shrugs him off as he continues to look upward and describe what he saw. He's taken over the mannerisms of the leapee.
Oh, it makes a change. Normally doesn't bother.
Yeah. And this did sort of... I mean, we've seen it before, and I think Al actually mentions it in this episode with Lee Harvey Oswald, where it doesn't just... Because normally that's the criticism we have. Sam acts like Sam no matter what.
Yeah. He does get there in this episode.
Yeah.
It's just this initial sort of shock and awe period. Tim doesn't seem to have a particular interest in what his grandfather's saying.
No. And he eventually allows Tim to walk him a few steps, but they find themselves blinded by the torch of a local cop.
Yeah, so we get the impression that he's maybe been reported missing.
Sure. We catch up with both of them back at their home, where Sam's worried daughter-in-law, I think it's Eva.
I think, yeah.
Thanks the cop and asks where they were, and as he leaves, he tells her that he found them by the woods at the hospital.
Yes, and Sam's son, Tim's father, John, says that Sam's gone a long way, especially for a man in slippers.
Yes.
At this point, Sam takes the opportunity to check out his own reflection.
He does indeed. What's he like?
He looks like he's about 80 years old. He's a gentleman of no particular distinctive... I mean, there's nothing about him. He's just an old guy.
He's an old man.
In his slippers.
He feels obliged to say sorry to his annoyed son, John, who's not happy with him, or his own son, Tim, who protests that he did nothing wrong except for go and find his pops.
Yes, however, John notes that this is probably not the first time he's done this. He's been going out and sneaking him in the back door.
Yes, and he condescendingly asks Sam if he saw anything interesting on his little walk. Sam doesn't pick up on the sarcasm or read the room until he sees Tim give him a stare, and so decides against any tales of spaceships, and Tim takes him to his bedroom.
Yes, wondering on the way why anyone would blame Sam for wanting to get out of here. So we can see there's some tension.
So they enter Sam's bedroom, where he scoffs when Tim refers to the lying Nixon as being history.
Well, Sam doesn't know what year it is, so how does he know
Yeah, that's
whether it's
true.
history or not? Anyway, Tim tells Sam not to let his parents know anything that they don't want to hear. Essentially, don't bring this stuff up with them.
Yeah, I mean, we find out here that he's talked about spaceships for the past 2 months and indicates that he may be going a bit mad before asking if he is in fact losing his mind.
Sam says he doesn't think so and asks again whether Tim saw... We didn't mention it before. He asked Tim when they were in the woods.
Yeah.
He said no. He's asking Tim again if he saw anything out there. He feels it must have been impossible for them to miss it.
But again, he answers in the negative.
No, he wishes he had seen something, and Sam's quite frustrated.
Yeah, he tries to stay calm and asks what else he has been telling Tim.
Yeah, that's a weird thing to ask.
But he just wants him to rest and stay in the house. He's not up for having a chat at this time of night.
But as he leaves, Sam thanks him and calls him a good kid, and then looks out the window and says, I know you're out there.
Like an imbecile.
Freaking weirdo.
Yeah.
Anyway, he looks at the walls and the things that this guy's... Well, she says he slept with a guy called Max.
Mm-hmm.
So the things that Max has put up on his wall, and he uncovers a mirror, and he starts wondering what it was that he did see before finding a book full of...
A scrapbook, I think.
Yeah, full of press clippings about UFOs and a calendar that tells him it's 1966.
Yes, but he is not sure when in 1966 until Al arrives to offer some clarity.
1966, great. When in 1966?
That's right, Sam. It is 1966. It's May 21st, to be exact, yes.
Thank God you're here.
Oh, glad to see you.
I saw something.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and it was incredible. I mean, the lights, the motion.
Oh, not you, too.
It started right after I leaped in. In fact, at first I thought it was a part of the leap in, or that maybe I was going to leap right back out again, only it kept on going and it became more beautiful. I mean, you'll never guess what it was. I mean, it was the most beautiful thing.
Saucer.
Well, no, it wasn't exactly a saucer, see, because it wasn't that flat. It was more like a bowl. Of course, I was only seeing it from the... You know?
Of course I know. Your name is Maxwell Stoddard, you're 79 years old, and you're convinced that you've been seeing UFOs.
I did see one.
Yeah, but see, that's what happens to you, Sam. Ziggy says your memory is Swiss cheese with the real Mr. Stoddard, who, by the way, right now is in the waiting room, and he thinks he's on his way to Venus.
I must be terrified.
Au contraire, he's in heaven. He keeps fingering our clothes. He wants to know what we eat. You know, he says to me, he says, take me to your leader. So I turned him over to Gushy, told him he was the king of the planet Halitosis.
Al, I gotta find a way to get back to those woods. Because there has to be some kind of physical evidence there.
That's exactly what you should not do.
No. See, you don't realize what I've discovered.
No, Sam, you don't realize that in less than a week, your son John is going to have you committed to the local mental hospital.
Just because I saw a UFO?
No, because Max thinks he saw a UFO, and he's been blabbing about it to everybody, including the parish priest, the ice cream man.
Al, the man is no more crazy than I am. And if I can get back to those woods, I can prove it to you.
Oh, that's all we need, is for you to go traipsing through the underbrush in your long johns. That'll get you into the hospital even sooner.
I'm not sure why Sam will not consider that perhaps he's leapt into someone who is, or does have mental health issues, is a bit mad and is seeing things.
So we had that previously. There was the one when he had the murder.
Yes.
And the guy was breaking down.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in this circumstance, Sam believes he's seen you in a UFO and is reacting to that as Sam. I don't think he is in any way affected by the person that he's leapt into.
But all he saw was, I suppose, bright light. Sam should
I saw them leaving in a specific way.
I don't know, an aircraft could do that.
Well, I'm not saying it was a UFO, but
No.
Sam thinks it was a UFO.
That's what I'm saying, but he doesn't question it in any way, he just accepts it straight away. This
That's
must.
always the case. Every time Sam thinks anything, he commits to it 100%.
Of course, we should be technical here. Yeah, as a UFO, if it's unexplained, that doesn't mean it's an alien craft.
It's not an extraterrestrial UFO. That said, I don't really think that believing you've seen a UFO is grounds to be institutionalised.
No, don't think so at all.
It seems
Plenty of people.
a wild overreaction.
Yeah, it happens all the time. There's people who claim it all over the world. There always has been.
Yeah.
So I think laughed at.
We get the impression shortly that, in fact, we'll get to it.
Okay. In any case, Sam is not convinced that he is there to stay quiet and asks Al what the odds are on him being there to prove that aliens exist.
Yes, and quite unfortunately, Ziggy produces odds that are quite similar to his odds of being there to not do that.
That doesn't make sense. You can't have... the odds are, if it's a percentage, it's of 100.
It should add up to 100.
Yes.
Yeah.
You couldn't have two odds. You could have...
Unless it's a separate calculation. So Ziggy's calculating each of them against
that doesn't.
all other things.
Nope.
Well, we hear this quite often. Ziggy has high percentages that don't add up.
It's wrong. That's not how percentages work.
Maybe it's such a complex calculation they just present it as a percentage to make it easy to understand.
It's an over-round book. That's where the bookies make their profit. Anyway, so yes, apparently 78% around about that he's there to prove that aliens exist, whilst it's 73% that what?
He's here to keep Max out of the mental hospital.
Okay.
So Sam and Al bicker about this for a bit. However, there's a problem.
What's that?
They're being watched, or at least Sam is.
By who?
John and Eve.
Ah, yes. They have walked towards the door.
Yes.
And it doesn't help Sam's cause when they witness him having a very animated conversation with Al.
Yeah. Although I think this is quite interesting because there's quite a lot of episodes where people see Sam talking to nobody. Mm-hmm. And because they don't already think he's crazy, they're willing to just ignore it or accept whatever excuse he comes up with.
I think that's understandable, yeah.
Whereas in this case where they think he's crazy to begin with, they're attributing that craziness to this behaviour.
I think that makes sense.
Or the other way around.
Totally understandable. I think that makes sense, yeah. And this is the first time in this episode where Sam really, he makes it harder to accomplish the objective of the leap here. So by being inconsiderate, by not thinking about where he is and his surroundings and having this open, shouty conversation with Al, he's only helping to convince his son and daughter-in-law that he is crazy. Stop doing this.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
In any case, and understandably, they're shocked and decide that his condition is now more severe than what they can support. And even though they accept he'll be miserable, they're going to have to send him to the hospital.
Well, this is what I was going to say. So they're taking it too far.
I'm not sure. I mean, I would agree that saying, I saw a UFO, that's not grounds. Even having a mumble to yourself, we all do that. But this was a psychotic episode.
I feel like this must be an interim step. Take him to see a GP. You don't have to have him committed to the asylum because he's having a conversation with himself.
Again, what I would say is if you think in terms of he's wandering into the woods at night, that's a safety concern. We can't stop him here. We're not a prison. He needs to be looked after by medical professionals here. If I saw my dad doing this, he's getting locked up. No doubt about it. And he knows it as well.
But he wouldn't be getting locked up in an asylum. You'd take him to like an old folks home or something like that where they had...
Maybe. Well, I'd have him assessed, obviously.
Yeah. Anyway, in the morning, Sam, who's completely oblivious to the fact he was overheard.
Yeah. Well, but before that, we have to say there's a nice shot here. Now, you can maybe tell me if I'm right or if I'm wrong. This, to me, reminded me very much of the Goonies. So I guess this would be sort of a Astoria, Oregon.
Yeah, it is.
Right, okay. Yeah, it's got that vibe to it.
Yes, so as I say, next morning, Sam, oblivious to having been overheard, comes down for breakfast and is quite chipper. Yeah,
he's thinking about how he can prove to Tim and John what he saw was real, but he has to listen as Tim argues with his dad about going to college and notes that Sam left Ireland for a better life. Now, John claims, well, your grandfather left to escape the potato famine, but that can't be right.
Well, the years don't add up, so either Max has lied to John or John's just assuming that's why he left Ireland. It might not have been during the potato famine, but there could still have been consequences subsequent to the potato famine that caused him to leave Ireland.
Sure.
So you trace it back to that without it having been directly the cause.
Fair enough. Yeah. But what he's doing is making the point that he left for reasons far more, I suppose, worthy than simply him wanting to go to Greenwich Village and become a rock star.
Yeah, it's a lack of opportunity. He's come for the chance to achieve something, not even to achieve something, but to exist on a different level.
Yeah.
As opposed to just wanting to pursue an ambition.
And we've seen this, I'd say, at least twice in Quantum Leap before. So this is the typical sort of rebellion that you see between child and parent, and it's something. It's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason.
Yeah,
where we've all went through those periods. We want to do something different, and the parent is actually being quite sensible. And I think you're expected to root for. And maybe when we watched it the first time, we would have rooted for Tim, but now looking at it, you're thinking, yeah, you shouldn't just be trying to go and become a rock star.
Yeah.
Get an education.
The problem for John isn't that his idea is wrong, it's that he can't communicate with his son.
That's it, yeah.
And almost all these things come back to communication.
Of course.
Sam's not allowed to intervene. He's got an idea for a middle ground, but is shut down fairly quickly by John. And then Tim comes out with a pretty outrageous comment. Yeah,
he silences everyone by saying what?
That Max has been more of a father to him than his real father has. That's not a nice thing to say.
No.
It's not really de-escalating anything.
No, and you don't get the feeling that is the case.
No, and I think Tim immediately regrets it, but walks out rather than apologising.
And so outside, as John strides to his car, Sam tries to calm things down, but isn't helped by Al turning up and deciding it's fine to talk with him.
Yeah, and Sam responds, which makes John react, but fortunately on this occasion he's able to pass it off as something he really said.
Now, Sam accepts that he is perhaps eccentric, but asks John not to give up on him, and surprises and embarrasses him by revealing that he knows about the plan to have him sectioned, hospitalised. Yeah,
that leads John to comment that his hearing at least is still okay. He also points out that as a child John was given more than a few second chances. That's probably a good guess for most kids.
That's fair enough, I'd say, yes.
John acknowledges this and they shake hands, and John asks him not to head straight to the woods as soon as he leaves.
We catch up with Sam and Al walking in the very quaint local fishing town. Now, for a second time, as soon as I saw this, I said, I've been there. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but that looks like the Universal backlot where Murder, She Wrote, Cabot Cove, the sort of town.
You're burning through all my trivia, but yes.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Now, also, that would mean, therefore, that it's also Columbo fade into Murder, where Columbo was there, the shark, Jaws shark, was in the water at that point.
The shark was actually in Columbo, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
same setting, but yeah. Anyway, sorry about that.
That's okay. And it's more Jaws related when they get to the dock area. But for now, they're walking down the street.
Yes.
And Sam notes that Max must have a theory about these UFOs because there's been a lot of unexplained sightings.
Yeah, he talks about the scrapbook stroke diary, which shows that the place apparently has a long history of these things. Now, he wants Ziggy to do some research on this, but Al isn't keen and initially claims that he can't as the local library burned down.
Fortunately, it hasn't happened yet as Sam manages to weasel out of him. This whole section reminded me a bit of have you seen the new version of It?
No. Yeah, I have actually.
The kid does all the research on the history of the town and how the folk get killed every 9 years, or however many years it is.
Sure.
It's more than 9. But yeah, this reminded me of this. He's going to go to the library, he's going to prove UFOs are here by looking at this pattern of sightings.
Yeah, Al wants him to stay away from this library for Max's sake.
He drops a wee Star Trek reference.
Yes, he does. What does he say?
He says he needs to stay away from the beam me up Scotty stuff, which I think is quite funny. He seems the two of them end up in Star Trek together.
Yes, but in a moment there's a second reference.
Okay.
In any case, Sam is determined to do a bit of research, but promises that he won't get caught and he won't take anything home from the library.
I think the problem is that Al does his research on YouTube. He just goes down a rabbit hole and he ends up being a right wing agitator.
And as they two argue, we see two men watching from a car with interest and through a pair of binoculars.
Straight out of a CIA sort of mockumentary or documentary type JFK story.
Sure.
So these two guys watching shadowy figures in the background.
One is dressed in military uniform and the other thinks that Sam talking to himself is fascinating.
That sounds like a good name for a podcast.
Yeah, anyone who's interested in a bit of Star Trek, the original series, could do worse than...
Yeah, try out Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast.
Where can you find that?
It's at astartrekpodcast.com.
And all good podcast providers.
Trek Podcast on Twitter, yeah.
Okay.
One of these two men thinks that Max's testimony might be compromised by the fact he's clearly doolally.
Yeah, but the other guy who I think we find out he's a psychiatrist, a doctor, he doesn't buy into that. He thinks that'll be fine.
Well, he certainly thinks there's something worth investigating. Meanwhile, Sam is noting to Al that there was a worldwide increase in UFO sightings in the northern USA, especially in 1966. It's a very specific thing for him to be remembering.
Yeah. And after Al agrees that he is not mad, he declares what he saw can only be explained in one way. That's nonsense.
Yeah, that's always nonsense.
Yeah. There's only one way. Again, that's not the shouldn't be the thinking of a scientist.
Absolutely
or
not.
a critical thinker. However, Al tells him it doesn't matter. He is there to stop Max dying in hospital. But Sam, as usual, wants to run a dual mission and prove the existence of aliens. Now, this I find utterly selfish and incredible.
And absurd.
Absurd. So he knows that in real life, in the original history, this doesn't happen. There's been no proof of alien existence. The consequences, the impact of him doing this is almost unimaginable.
It's on a scale completely different to any of the other things he's done.
This isn't helping some kid find... This isn't.
He says himself this could be as important as the Quantum Leap project.
He should not be doing this. Because that could, the knock-on effect could... What it could do, you could easily argue that might jeopardise the funding of the Quantum Leap project. All your money would be potentially, all government funding could be put into that.
Yep.
And therefore Quantum Leap doesn't exist and there he disappears, or he's now trapped in time.
Yep, that could easily be what happens.
Al insists that it's a futile exercise and points out that people have been trying to prove this for hundreds of years. And then he wants to know why he thinks Sam, is so special. But in fairness, I would say at this point,
If anyone,
this is a guy who's invented time travel and he's got 9 PhDs, etc. So if there's anyone who could do it, it would be Sam. He is quite special.
Yeah, I think Al makes quite a good point here because he says that even if you come up with irrefutable evidence, it will be refuted.
Yes.
There's people who have scepticism about this, but there's also people who have vested interests.
Sure. But even then, it's just an absurd notion. It's a bit like mediums and things like that who they say that they can, as soon as you ask them to do something specific or prove something, well, we can't for this reason. Your name begins with somebody beginning with a J. Why don't you just tell me? Why do we have to guess and play this parlour game? And it's the same thing with this, isn't it? Like, Max isn't going to prove anything. Some old guy out in the sticks will not be proved. If aliens existed, why do they not just land in Times Square or in London or somewhere else where everyone could see during the Super Bowl, right? Let's come down in a massive audience. It's always these weirdos and drunks and hillbillies and things like that, right? So one guy doing it can't prove it.
Yeah, what is it that Sam... I think Sam thinks if he shows this pattern of when they're going to appear, then folk will be able to be there the next time and see it happen.
Yeah. No, if aliens want, if they exist, it'll be easy to prove it. They won't hide and speak to old guys.
If aliens exist, they're probably microbial.
Well, possibly. Yeah, they're not on ships. And that's the other thing as well, it really annoys me. Hundreds of years ago, people didn't have these sightings of the ships and the metal because it didn't exist. Materials didn't exist. People couldn't
conceive of it.
It's only now from TV and things that now people are seeing these things that they've been told this is what they look like. It's absolute nonsense. Anyway, Al tells Sam that it's too risky, that he will get caught, but Sam walks away stating that he won't, as Al shouts after him that he's changed his mind. He is crazy.
Back in the car.
And still watching, the men can't agree on what to do about him.
This is pointless. The old man's coming unglued.
We don't know that for sure. Come on. When you're riding alone in the car, don't you ever rehearse conversations or things you wish you'd said?
Yeah, sure I do. But he's not in a car. He's on a public dock. And I usually don't wave my arms and pace around like a caged animal. Next thing you know, I'll be foaming at the mouth.
Look, I don't try to play soldier. Why don't you quit playing psychiatrist?
I say we classify him not relevant and head back to D.C. We've got plenty of other subjects.
Not who've kept notes like Stoddard. or written articles. Frankly, I find his theory of return UFO visitations in this area quite coherent.
Yeah, Alice in Wonderland is coherent, too. That doesn't mean I believe in grinning cats who disappear.
You give up too easily.
Are you seriously going to put your signature on a report about a man whose own son wants to have him committed?
Not unless I can verify his testimony with other ways.
You know I don't like those other ways.
They work, Major. I think maybe the state hospital just might be the safest place for Maxwell Stoddard after all.
So is that sort of prototype Mulder and Scully there?
Yeah, basically.
I don't understand what their goal is here. So they've got some old guy who's been he's been writing articles. It's not like this is, it's not his secret. He's trying to tell everyone. So they why don't they just go over and tap him on the shoulder and say, oh, you've seen aliens? Like, what they're watching for? What do they think's happening here?
They need to be adding an element of subterfuge so they feel important.
Yeah, I just don't get it. Anyhow.
Back at the house, there's a shock for Sam.
Yes, Sam walks into a teenage boy's bedroom and catches him doing something.
Something he should not be doing.
Well, depends.
Arguably. Something his father would not approve of.
His father probably done it at his age as well.
Well, some people's fathers. His mother certainly wouldn't be approving of it.
Maybe not in the 60s, no. He's listening to the Kinks whilst packing up. He's heading out of town.
Yeah. I wonder if it's a legit attempt or one of those ones where you put just random stuff in a bag and say, I'm leaving.
I remember the first time I ran away from home. I had my school bag, I put a yogurt and a banana. Yeah. Literally, by the time I got to the end of my street, I'd eaten both and come back.
That was a good effort, though.
Yeah. Yeah, he unconvincingly tells Sam he's just going camping with the boys.
Sam, however, does not believe him and says he thought they had an honest relationship.
And so Tim admits that he's going to the village and doesn't intend coming back.
Where's the village?
New York.
Where are they now?
I think just outside, great New York State, I would have thought. That's what it's meant to. Upstate, yeah.
Sam accepts that Tim is old enough to make his own choices, but also old enough now to know this is a bad idea.
And will devastate his parents. So he offers an alternative.
Sam suggests that while community college might be all his father can afford, Tim can go to university in New York by funding it himself through his music.
Play at night and go to university, college through the day.
Sam has no idea how good Tim is at music.
No, and see, I think John makes the point I'll make just now a bit later on. So you've got to go and play in a bar band every night to make the money.
Yeah.
Leaving aside yet the time when you would be studying, you'll be absolutely knackered. Like bars open up until sort of, imagine one in the morning.
Teenagers go on forever.
Yeah, but not in the morning. You'll just be knackered, probably hungover.
At least.
It's just, I don't think that's the best way to. Yeah. Anyhow,
Tim is pretty convinced that his dad won't be on board.
Yeah, his eyes light up for a second, but then he dismisses the idea, assuming, as you say, that John won't go for it. But Sam tells him that he'll help sell the idea to his dad. And then, seeing his guitar, they talk musicians.
Oh, this is terrible.
And Sam tells him that he must see Hendrix later that year in Woodstock. Obviously.
Well, why would you bring that up when you know
it doesn't, yeah.
Like,
you just can't help show off.
You're just going to make the guy have some kind of episode or something when he realises this is, whoa.
Discussed this before, you're messing with people's heads. Like, down the line, you go, how would he have known that? This is weird. Yeah, Tim laughs as Woodstock is just a farm at this point. Before we have a really cringy and diabolical scene where he impresses him by plugging in the electric guitar and doing his best Jimi Hendrix impersonation. This F off. This is terrible for a number of reasons. It's just, again, vanity and selfishness.
It's irrelevant to who he's meant to be. And
Sam must assume, if you're guessing, you assume that that Max doesn't play the guitar.
He certainly doesn't play this way.
It doesn't play this way. It just looks really, really weird. Like, he's not playing music well that Tim would be aware of.
Yeah.
He's playing something he's never heard before, so it doesn't even make sense to...
It's very Back to the Future.
Yeah, well, exactly.
You've also got the same sort of issue with white guys inventing black music.
Yeah, sure.
But anyway, it's cut short because John comes in and disapproves of this young people's music.
A bit like Marty McFly's audience.
Well, yes. They're not ready for it.
No. Later that night, and after some tension around the dinner table as they eat, Sam brings up the solution that he has devised.
Well, he kind of has to drag it out of Tim a little bit
Yeah.
And there's an argument as well because Tim's not eating much, and his father thinks it's disrespectful to his mother to not eat the food. His dad's been a bit of a...
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just they're picking each other because there is this tension.
Yeah. It's like we say, communication.
Yeah, Eva, she's quite open to the idea, but John can't believe that he's passing up the chance to stay at home for for free room and board, as it were.
Yes, he says that he would have jumped at the opportunity at the same age.
Yeah, and this results in Tim storming out, and when Sam gets up to go bring him back, John shocks even Eva by telling him not to bother, and he thinks that they're all ganging up on him.
Sam points out that it takes a gang to get through to him.
Yeah, I think that is fair enough. John,
He's been stubborn.
He's been stubborn, but he's not the worst, and I think it's probably replicated through. And his attitude in that era, I think it'd be pretty typical.
Probably. Sam does leave at this point, and John is looking a bit unhappy.
Outside, he gets Al to run a projection on Tim's future, and it's not good.
No, because of this incident, he becomes a junkie and dies of an overdose.
An overdose, yeah. It's quite the turn.
Yeah, Sam runs after him.
He does his silly run, yeah.
In town, he starts shouting for Tim and finds him in a bar.
Yes. Where he is in a foul mood because of his jerk of a father who treats them both like babies. Al arrives at this point with an update, and we find that Tim is now a secondary objective. That has to be even worse than the guitar scene, and perhaps one of the worst scenes in Quantum Leap history.
Or television history.
Yeah, it's up there.
Say.
It's cringy, it's horrible. It's lazy writing as well. How do we resolve this? Oh, tell him that and it's solved. There's no way. And even then, again, we're talking about people's heads being messed up.
Yeah.
How did my grandfather, my old 80-year-old grandfather, know about Janis Joplin before anyone else?
And she was a witch. I better not take it. That would make you take more heroin.
Yes, it would make
to forget about this nonsense.
Yes. And then Elvis. I mean, Elvis was 77. That's nothing to do with that. This is terrible writing here.
Yeah, and terrible execution by Sam of his idea.
Yeah, just remember it. Yeah, you're right. It would, once the first you go, maybe a coincidence. Was that the guy my grandfather mentioned? Once the second one goes, you're going, this is weird, this is really freaky.
I need to get this out of my head somehow.
Yeah. It would send you to drinking drugs.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And they exacerbate this by putting their arm around each other's shoulders and heading off home. Everything has been fixed.
Disgusting, yeah. Tim calls him the original space cadet as they do this.
Yeah.
Walk off.
That's Sam's plan for winning the war on drugs.
He's such a square. I've never done weed or grass, never even done smoke. A guy's a perpetual student.
Do you have any of the marijuana?
He's terrible, isn't he? It was so boring to hang about with Sam. It was horrible. They arrive home and Tim immediately offers an apology, but there is a more pressing issue.
Yeah, the two creepy guys from Air Force Intelligence are there.
Dr. Hardy and Major Meadows. A worried Al tells Sam not to answer any questions, and an equally concerned Tim proclaims that Sam is not crazy.
Yes, and there's a problem though, because Sam has an inherent respect for authority that obliges him to tell them everything. Yeah,
they sit down and Meadow tells him that they investigate unexplained events that may impact national security, including flying saucers.
It's very X-Files, isn't it?
Oh,
Except if X-Files was done by, like, Monty Python.
Yeah.
Al continues to warn Sam throughout this whole period, but Sam is starting to stretch his legs a little bit in terms of his options.
He is, they say, he is known in the area and they want to talk to him, but at first he is reluctant and cites that people might think he is crazy. Hardy thinks this is understandable and confides that a few crackpots have poisoned the well, but they're really interested in this subject matter and respect his opinion.
Sam asks at this point about Project Blue Book.
Where did he get that from?
It's in the trivia.
All right, okay. Is there anything else in this episode?
No.
All right.
It's future knowledge, basically. It's a real US government program about UFOs.
Okay, and he brings this up right now.
So he brings this up to show that he has knowledge that is valuable.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's told it's classified, but they then lie to him and say that if his testimony goes well, they may be able to get their superiors to share a summary. He buys that.
Yeah.
Because he talks later on about how excited it's going to be to see it.
Well, the government have told him. Why would they lie?
Oh, yeah, officials. Yes, that guy, look, he's got glasses. He agrees to meet them the next day to go through everything he knows, but Al continues to warn him that this is not a good idea.
Outside.
Yes, Sam's not there. He's still inside, quite excited about what's just happened. John is there with the two men.
Yeah, he's seeing them out and is surprised to hear that they don't have any intention of speaking with his dad. And he's quite angered or annoyed with them leading him on.
Yeah, but they then come up with a narrative that John can buy into.
What's that?
They've just set it up like this to make it easy for John to take Max, or Sam in this instance, to the general hospital and have him committed.
Quite presumptuous. So do they... I think during the conversation they mentioned having sources. So do we think they've been having a chat with John before this then? They've been...
No, I think what they're doing is... Oh, we see what they're doing. They're setting up this
but what I'm saying is, if they've not spoke to John before, how would they know that he wants to get his dad locked up in a hospital?
Well, because they've seen him talking to himself and he goes on about UFOs. Obviously, he must be committed.
But that doesn't mean to say that your son would want you to be.
No, but the whole story is based on the premise that would be the natural thing to do.
Yeah, and they say that he should be very grateful that the hospital's so close by.
Yes, they're off to DC in the morning.
Meanwhile, Sam seems quite excited at the prospect of the meeting the next day and of hearing more about Blue Book.
Quite conveniently, Ziggy is not able to give any analysis of what's happening right now.
But Al's got a bad feeling, just like he did with his Hungarian second wife.
Sam talks to Al about the data he's provided from the library and thinks there must be a pattern.
So he asks Al to run it through Ziggy, and he is right.
There's a alien visit, apparently, every 47.5 Earth months, and a second visit a few days later.
This really excites Sam as he thinks he'll be there to see the second one. But again is caught talking to himself, this time by Tim, who is understandably disturbed by what he sees and hears.
Yes, so the next day we see the big sign for the state hospital as Sam and Tim and John pull up.
Yeah, Sam's quite pumped up. He thinks he's going for this meeting, but is quickly deflated when he realises it's not the military building that he expected.
No, he's grabbed by both Tim and John and handed over to some orderlies.
Again, this is a cliche, isn't it? That no one in these type of facilities are ever considerate, compassionate or caring. They're always bullies.
Yes, and everyone gets dragged in, screaming.
Yeah. And if you don't like it, you're getting jabbed.
Sedated, that's it.
He's further shocked to discover that Hardy and Meadows are actually there waiting for him, but not in the capacity that he expected, and they've got a tray of syringes.
Yes, it's a bit of a torture chamber, isn't it? Al is very concerned that this truth serum that they seem to have will lead to Sam changing history.
Again, would it? If you start rambling on about 1999, if I was in front of you...
They're just going to think he's actually crazy.
Yes, because I'm no expert, but if you believe... I'm assuming that if you actually do believe something, a truth serum will just make you talk, will make you say what you actually believe.
I read an article on the BBC about this. Dr. Michael Mosley tried it. Unfortunately, recently deceased. But
all right, I thought it was some sort of bad, a distasteful joke there by you.
No, he literally... There's an article on the BBC of him trying this truth serum.
Right.
And after a small dose, he's able to continue the lie that he'd set up for the purposes of that meeting. But when they give him a bigger dose, he admits who he really is.
That's one of my worst fears, been given that. The stuff that would come out of my mouth.
Oh. They need to know the right questions to ask.
Have you ever? Anyway.
Meadows at this point notes that he didn't join the Air Force to harass old men.
No, but Hardy tells him that he joined to follow orders.
That shuts him up quite nicely. At this point, Sam's gambit to avoid the serum is to tell them everything he knows about these UFOs.
Yes, in technical terms. And so they start recording.
A wee bit late, but they do.
Yeah, but they want to make sure he is, in fact, telling the truth, and so they deliver the serum in front of a now furious Al.
He heads back to work out what to do, whilst outside, John and Tim lament the forms they've had to fill in.
Yes, it's now dark. They've obviously been there for quite a few hours, and Tim accepts that his dad is not to be blamed for what they've just done, and tells him that, he saw him having a whole conversation with himself the previous night.
Yes, they have a brief exchange about an imaginary friend, and Tim saying he hopes he doesn't have to put John in here one day, at which point there is something I want to pick up. So Tim spots this car.
Yeah.
He hasn't seen this car before.
Has he not?
Well, He might have seen it outside the house when they got back to the house the night before.
Would you recognise
he
that?
was? He obviously wasn't expecting anyone to be in there when he went in, so it's unlikely he took much notice of it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
What are the chances of him realising that that's their car?
Very small.
I would say so. Mm-hmm. It should have been John that spotted the car, because he was the one that was out there speaking to them when they left.
But yes, even then at night, and it was a very nondescript, average car.
However, it does have government plates, which they want to check out a little closer.
Back in the hospital room, Sam is now under the influence and unable to keep quiet.
Let's start with something simple, like your name.
No, Sam.
Sam.
Louder, please.
Dr. Samuel Beckett.
No.
Think you gave him too much?
Do you know where you are?
I'm in New Mexico.
What is the date?
May 1st, 1999.
Gushy, if I should suddenly pop out of existence, I want to leave everything to my first wife, Beth.
Tell us about yourself, Dr. Beckett.
Born 8/8/53.
Terrific. He's 13 years old?
Or 113.
Father's name, John Samuel Beckett. Mother's name, Thelma Louise Beckett. Social Security number, 563-86-9801. Department of Defense, Umbra clearance number 004-002-02-016.
Did you hear that?
It's a coincidence. He was in the service.
In World War I, Umbra is an operative code. Why do you need a clearance?
Hang in there, Sam. Hang in there.
Why do you need a clearance, Dr. Beckett?
My project.
No.
What is your project?
Project Quantum Leap.
This project studies unidentified flying objects.
Travel in time.
All they're really proving here is that he believes this. They're not proving it's true.
Well, that's what I said, yeah. That's just his truth.
Mm-hmm. However, they're interrupted by a knock on the door. It's an orderly with some medications.
Well, that's what they think. However, it's not. It's Tim and John, and they've got a shotgun.
Yes. I don't know where that came from.
Well, they probably have it in their car.
I guess, yes. If they're living near the woods and stuff, I guess. So they rescue Sam and they drag him outside, and we hear an alarm ringing in the hospital as they head out.
I quite like John's aggression here. That he threatens to blow their faces off. Yes. Not messing about here.
The funny thing for me when they get outside is that Al tries to direct Sam. Mm-hmm. So Sam directs the other two, and they just go where he says. He's doped up. Why are they following his directions?
Yeah, but he still knows the woods. He's always messing about in there, doing whatever he's doing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
they end up at the UFO spot and hide as Meadows and Hardy chase after them.
Yeah, and they're meaning business as well. They've got their, I suppose, they know that John's got a shotgun. They've got their gun drawn as well.
They do.
Or Meadow does. Eventually Sam decides to give himself up, and he stands to be roughly pulled over by Meadows. But John doesn't like this, and so he also rises with his gun, and there is a standoff.
Yes, Sam urges John to put the shotgun down. However, they're interrupted, and I suppose it's implied that Sam knew this was going to happen, but how could he possibly?
I'm not sure he
doesn't even know what time of day it is.
No,
he's doped up.
I don't think it's implied that. I think it's just a coincidence.
So what was his plan?
Don't know.
As soon as the UFOs reappear, Sam disarms Meadows and heads back to his family.
And with the government men now convinced he was telling the truth, Sam follows Al's instruction and steps forward to go on the ride of a lifetime.
He's up to get anal probed.
He waves goodbye and stares up, but before we see what happens, he leaps.
Yeah, he's not getting taken away by aliens. That's ridiculous.
No, they don't exist. So this is the thing. Are we now expected to believe in this universe then that aliens do exist?
Or is it just something like a helicopter shining a light on him? We don't know. It's not confirmed one way or the other.
No. Where's Sam leapt?
Well, this is a big surprise, isn't it? He's leapt into a forklift truck.
Yeah, back into Jimmy, losing control of this vehicle on the dock as Frank, his brother, rushes to help and admonish him for attempting to drive when he's not qualified.
Sam is delighted to be back as Jimmy.
Yes, I think he says, "Oh, it's good to be back in familiar surroundings," and we get an old boy, but it's from
Frank, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my first question. Are aliens real now?
Well, looks like it. I'm convinced.
So what do you think happened after Sam leaps out? What happens to Max?
He's arrested and put in a hospital. Hopefully.
They're all killed by the government thing that's producing the light.
If we accept that aliens don't exist, then he is seeing things and hearing things, and he probably needs medical attention.
Yeah. Why does the hospital have a massive alarm system for people breaking out?
Yeah.
And why did only those two people come out chasing them?
Is it, or is it just a fire alarm?
Or maybe they set off the fire alarm to distract everybody.
Yeah.
That would make sense. That's a good idea. Any other thoughts on this one? It was good fun.
It was very good fun, yeah. Issues with what they're doing and why they're doing it. But I'm impressed with season 5 so far, I have to
It's
say.
been enjoyable.
Yeah.
This particular episode aired originally on the 27th of October 1992, directed by Christopher Hibbler. Second of his 4 episodes. You'll remember him from your least favourite episode, Temptation Eyes, with the witch. Written by Richard C. Oakey, third of his 6.
Okie dokie, as he was.
Okie-dokie. His first one was A Single Drop of Rain, so head back to that podcast if you want to hear more about him. Young Tim Stoddard was played by Morgan Weiser. This was his only Quantum Leap. He's also in a few things: Charmed, Space Above and Beyond, Alias, one episode of The X-Files where he played Lee Harvey Oswald.
That's quite
a good connection. His father, interestingly, is Norbert Weiser, who's also an actor. He's been in things like Hocus Pocus, Schindler's List, Midnight Express, maybe a bit more successful. Don't want to do poor Morgan down, but he's now 53, Morgan, and his last screen credit was in 2010. Dr. Hardy, the bald, creepy military guy, was played by H. Richard Green. This was his only Quantum Leap. He also appeared in things like Armageddon, The Wonder Years, The West Wing, Mad Men.
Yeah, I think he played Winnie Cooper's dad in The Wonder Years.
Yeah, alongside his own wife, played the mum.
Really?
Yeah.
That's good.
And he did voices for my favourite RPG, Dragon Age Origins. Now 78, still performs. He's also a guest professor at UCLA. An interesting one. At first I thought there was nothing to say about this guy, but I found a wee bit. Michael Maguire, who played Major Irwin Meadows, the dark-haired, creepy military guy. This was his only Quantum Leap, and his screen career was really pretty short, although it did include an appearance on Star Trek Voyager. Previously married to Marita Geraghty from Groundhog Day, and then to Shelley Smith, also an actor who died in 2023. He was part of the original Broadway cast of Les Miserables, and now he's 69, and he got his law degree in 2008, and he practices family law in Beverly Hills through his company Marital Dispute Advisors. I'm
going to look up that website.
The mother, Eve Stoddard, was played by Anne Lockhart. This was her only Quantum Leap. She's also in things like Basic Instinct, City Slickers, E.T., Battlestar Galactica, and Chicago Fire. She turned down the role of Laurie Strode in Halloween. She's a fourth-generation actor. Her mother, June Lockhart, was well known for her roles on Lassie and Lost in Space. She's now 70, still active, and has put a lot of time into her own IMDb bio. John Stoddard, the father, played by Guy Boyd. This was his only Quantum Leap. You'll remember him from Mrs. Columbo. He's also been in Knots Landing, Sister Act, and Foxcatcher. He's now 81, still active, which seems to be a trend in the United States these days. Josh Cox played the police officer at the start who picked Sam up in the woods. This was his only Quantum Leap, and subsequent to this episode, he added a second X to the end of his surname. He's also been in Babylon 5, Friends, Thor, the MCU, Thor movie, and General Hospital. He's now 60 and still active.
Elon Musk will do that shortly, won't he? With
What's
his
that?
X.
His kids have all got weird symbols in them. Finally, the reflection of Max Stoddard was played by Douglas Stark, and I don't normally mention reflection, so you know there must be something coming up.
Stark Industries.
He was also in Beverly Hills 90210, Burke's Law. He was the uncle of Prince Andrew's very good friend, Q Stark.
Oh, yes.
And was in one episode of Columbo.
Was he?
Do you remember him?
Nope.
He was the chairman in Butterfly and Shades of Grey.
Don't even remember the chairman.
He died in 2009 when he was 93. In terms of trivia, you've already given most of this away, but entrance to the hospital/asylum was the front of Belisario Productions.
Ah, that's good.
Project Blue Book, real government programme looking into UFOs. The town is the same as the use for Cabot Cove. The guitar playing was actually done by Scott Bakula. Can you believe it? A grown man able to play the guitar. On Tim's wall, you may have spotted a Herman's Hermits poster, which links back to the episode Glitter Rock, where the singer from Herman's Hermits played the manager. As we said already, the chat on the dock with Alan Sam was at the Amity Island section of the Universal Studios backlot. In terms of things that we learned, Al's second wife was Hungarian. His favourite wife is Beth. We probably knew that.
Yeah.
Sam's parents, John Samuel Beckett, Thelma Louise Beckett. And apparently there's a reference to a Quantum Leap predecessor program called Star Bright. I didn't catch that. I did read that was in it, but I don't remember where it was said. In terms of on this date, I've got a couple. Cassius Clay defeated Henry Cooper at Highbury Stadium in London for the 6th round stoppage to retain the World Heavyweight Championship.
That was the second fight, yeah.
And everyone's favourite paramilitary, the UVF, made its first public statement declaring war on the IRA and warning authorities against appeasement.
I also have...
I should point out that UVF's not anyone's favourite paramilitary. That was a...
It was sarcasm.
A loose comment there.
As some people, I was the member of it. On the 22nd then, so that be the next day.
Yep.
It was the final ever episode of Perry Mason, the original run with Raymond Burr, yes. Number 1 is in the UK. We had the Rolling Stones with Paint It Black, bit of a classic
Good
there.
song. And
in the States, it was the Mamas and the Papas with Monday, Monday. Oh, also, the Broadway production of The Subject Was Roses, starring Jack Albertson. He was the Grandpa Joe in Willy Wonka.
Okay.
Irene Daly and Martin Sheen closed after 832 performances. It won 2 Tonys and a Pulitzer.
Decent. Next week.
Yes.
Sam travels back just a couple of months and discovers he's not the only one leaping through time in Deliver Us From Evil. So we will see you in 1966 once again.
Till then,
Cheerio.
bye-bye.